Hello everybody, today we're going to think about our plants, and yesterday I showed you how you can start growing plants from kitchen scraps, and today I want to think about what to do when the plants start growing and they're planted into the ground, how we can encourage them to grow really healthily. So lots of you will know that plants need sunlight to grow, they need water, and they take in carbon dioxide from the air, and they make their own food through a process called photosynthesis, and then they release oxygen back out into the air. But just like us, we need vitamins and minerals that we get from eating healthy fruit and vegetable. Plants also need minerals, and they get minerals through their roots from the soil, and those minerals are needed by the plants to keep them healthy as well. So one way that we can encourage our plants to grow healthily is to give them lots and lots of minerals, and we do that through fertiliser. So I'm going to show you a couple of different ways that you can make fertiliser for your plants today. Now some of you might have at home a compost heap, and you already recycle some of your kitchen scraps, your vegetable and fruit waste, into a compost heap, and that is one way of making a type of fertiliser that you can use to keep your plants healthy. But not everybody will have a compost heap at home. So I'm going to show you a couple of really easy ways that you can make some lovely fertiliser to feed your plants once they start growing. The first way is to use a plastic bottle. So I've got an old juice bottle here that I've just rinsed out to make it nice and clean. And the first thing you will need to do is to cut around the top, not all the way, we're just going to make a sort of flap for a lid. So if I show you, about sort of a third to a quarter of the way down the bottle, and I'm going to just cut round so that I can make a sort of flap that I can open like that, so that I can put things into my bottle. Now you're going to have three ingredients for this. The first ingredient is just some soil, or if you've already got a bit of compost, some compost. So that's just some composting soil that I've got in there. That's my first ingredient. My second ingredient is lots of kitchen scraps. So this is all sort of vegetable and plant waste. Don't put anything in your composter and your fertiliser maker that is cooked or that is meaty. Okay, so fruit and vegetable waste is really good. So I've got lots of that, and what I've done is I've just cut it up into smaller pieces. And the third ingredient is just some dead leaf litter. So you might be able to find this lying around in your garden, just some dead leaves and bits that have fallen off onto the ground. So those are your three ingredients for this. And to start off with, you'll need to put a layer of soil into the bottom of your bottle. Okay? So just put that in and shake it down. So you can see I've got a layer that's a couple of centimetres thick at the bottom of soil. That's to start it off. Then we use our three layers as follows. So my first layer is going to be a little bit of my vegetable waste. So I'm just going to put a thin layer of vegetable waste in like that. So that's my first layer. On top of that, I'm going to put some soil. So I'm going to cover it just with a layer of soil. So I've got my vegetable waste, then some soil. Then I'm going to cover it with some of my dead leaves like that. And I'm going to push it down nice and tight. Then I'm going to do the same again, so same layers again. So my first layer is a layer of vegetable waste, like this. Thin layer of vegetable waste. Then on top of that, a layer of soil. And then on top of that, a layer of my dead leaves. And I'm going to push that down really tight. Wonder if I can get another layer in as well. So I've got 2 layers of vegetable waste. I'm going to try a third one. So I'm going to put another layer of vegetable waste in. Oh, and press it down. And then I'm going to cover that in a layer of soil. And then on top of that, I'm going to put a layer of dead leaves. So I've filled my plastic bottle up as much as I can with all of my layers. So it goes my vegetable and fruit waste, then my soil, then my leaves, then more vegetable and fruit waste, then soil, then leaves, and so on until I get right up to the top. What we're going to do now is if it feels quite dry, you can put a little bit of water in, not very much, just make it slightly damp. My soil was actually quite damp because it's been raining recently, so I haven't had to make it wet. But if it looks too dry, what you can do is add a little bit of water. Just by, if you've got an empty spray bottle, you can just spray some water in. I'm not going to add any to mine because I think it's wet enough. And then what we need to do is we're going to tape the lid on. So I've just got some normal sellotape here. And what I'm going to do is put some tape around the lid to hold the lid in position, like that. So just wrapping that around a couple of times. There we go. And there is my bottle all sealed up. So I've got the lid on tight at the top. I haven't thrown the lid away. I've got the lid on, keep the lid on, and I'm sealing it up with tape. What I'm going to do is I'm going to put it somewhere in the sun, somewhere in a nice sunny spot, and I'm going to keep looking at it. Sometimes you might see that water condenses on the inside, that you can see little water droplets. If it looks like it's getting a bit too wet, just take the tape off, open the lid up and let it dry out for a few hours, and then tape it up again. And if it looks like it's getting very, very dry, untape it, spray a little bit of water in, and then tape it up. And then another thing that you can do is every few days you can tip it on its side and give it a good old roll around to mix up some of those layers. And if you keep that in a nice sunny spot for a few weeks, what you'll find is that your vegetable and fruit matter will start to rot down, and it'll all turn into some lovely, lovely compost that your plants will really, really like, full of minerals to help your plants grow. Okay, so you do need to be patient. You can have to wait a few weeks. So that's one way to make some nice compost fertiliser, and it'd be really interesting to see which of your vegetable and fruit scraps rot down the quickest. You can turn it into a science experiment as well. Put some things in that you think will rot down really, really quickly, and other things that you think might take a long time to rot down. You could do a little investigation there as well. So that's the first way. The second way, all you need for this is lots and lots of weeds and a bucket. So some of you will know that I'm not very good at growing things normally in my garden, but the one thing that does grow really, really well are lots of weeds. So a weed is any plant that's growing where you don't want it to grow. So sometimes our weeds actually make really lovely flowers, and they're quite nice to have around. But some of these weeds I didn't want them to grow where they were, so I've pulled them up. And what you need to do when you're weeding is try and pull up the whole plant. So I've pulled up the whole thing, roots and all, and I've shaken all of the mud off. So this is a really, really good opportunity to have a look at the structure of plants. You can see the roots here and the leaves. This one hasn't got any flowers, but it's got some nice thick stems here. So you could, whilst you're doing your weeding, it's a really good opportunity to remind yourself what all the different parts of the plant are, what the function is of those parts, what the job is, and have a really, really close-up look, particularly at the roots. Are really, really interesting to look at close up. So what you need is you need to pull up lots and lots of weeds and put them in a bucket. Now it's important that your bucket doesn't have a hole in it anywhere. Okay, make sure it's not got a hole in, and put all the weeds that you find into your bucket. So you might need to check with an adult that what you're pulling up is a weed. Okay, check with an adult first. Pull up all your weeds, and then you need something heavy to put on top of them. So I just happen to have an old brick here, so I'm going to put that into my bucket to weigh my weeds down, just like that. And then we're going to make a sort of soup. So what you need to do is you need to get some water and just pour that into your bucket so that it covers all the weeds. Okay, so enough water just to cover the weeds. I might need to put a little bit more water in mine in a minute. And then again, you need to just leave it. You need to be patient. If you leave that, what will happen is that all of those weeds will rot down, and at the bottom you'll get a sort of thick black, muddy looking water that is full of lots and lots of lovely nutrients and minerals that your plants will really, really like, and you can use that liquid fertiliser to help your plants grow nice and healthy and strong. It does get a bit smelly, this, so leave it in a corner somewhere where it's not going to annoy anybody by smelling. Okay, and then just wait. You have to be patient, wait a few weeks, and your fertiliser will be perfect. So have a go at making some fertiliser or a bottle composter like this, and tomorrow I'm going to show you how we're going to get ready to plant some of our plants that we've started growing from our kitchen scraps. So I'll see you then. Bye.